Sir Alistair Morton, you are co-chairman of Eurotunnel. And you must be a very proud man today.
I'm an extremely proud man, yes. Extremely proud. This is a tremendous achievement, a great commercial adventure.
Yes.
I mean, just think, you can get on a train in Waterloo and 3 hours later you can be having lunch in Paris.
Yes.
And that's just one of the possibilities. I mean, 3 hours later you could be still in the train, in the middle of the tunnel, having complimentary sandwiches.
Yes. Or 8 hours later, you could be walking back along the track, carrying your luggage back to England.
The options are absolutely enormous.
Yeah. And of course, the great thing about this is that it's entirely privately financed.
Yes, that gives me the greatest pleasure, that the Channel Tunnel, Eurotunnel, has paid its way and not one penny of taxpayers' money has been used.
No, that's very good. Of course, you've last week announced your half-yearly figures for 1995. How are you doing? Because I remember last year in your prospectus that you issued to investors and potential investors, you prophesied your revenue would be for the whole of 1995, was it £524 million?
£524 million, yes.
And you've got halfway through the year, and what have you got so far?
In the first 6 months, our revenue was £104 million.
So, by my calculations, you only need to make another £420 million in the second half of the year, and you'll be up to your target.
Yes.
So you've got to do 4 times better in the second half of the year than you've already done, yes.
That's right.
This was
in the ballpark area, isn't
yes. This wasn't a very accurate prediction of yours, was it?
Well, it depends what you mean by accurate.
Well, I was thinking of one figure being rather similar to another figure.
Well, I mean, if you're going to use the word in that very narrow, and I must say, a rather pedantic way.
We've talked about your revenue. I mean, what about profit and loss? What are those figures?
The figure that came out in the end was £464 million.
For the half year, that's quite good, isn't it?
Loss.
Loss, I see, yes.
Yes, but that isn't really a loss.
Is it not?
No.
It's just that it looks like a loss on the balance sheet because it has a little minus sign in front of it.
And the word loss after it.
And the word loss after it, yes. But
that's a technical matter.
It's misleading, isn't it?
It's very, very misleading.
Yes.
Yes, it's not a loss, because you see, of that 464 million, 365 million amounted to payments of interest back to the banks.
Oh, you owe the banks, what is it that you owe the banks?
£8 billion.
£8 billion. So you do need a lot of money from somewhere, don't you?
Yes, we do, but we have various strategies for doing that.
Oh, really?
For example, you see, I could go to the city institutions and I could raise a tremendous amount of money by selling shares in the company.
Yes.
But of course I'd have to point out that this would be a unique operation, a once-and-for-all operation.
You
couldn't be repeated.
You would never do it again, no. I mean, do you think you could persuade them of that?
Well, I don't see why not. I've done it twice already.
That's right. In 1990 and 1994, you said this was the first and last time.
That's right.
You said.
And we're also thinking, of course, of litigation, of taking certain legal action
against
the ferry companies.
For what?
For taking passengers across the channel for less money.
Oh, really? That's extraordinarily underhand, isn't it, of them? Yes. And to what depths ferries might sink.
I hope so.
Yes. But you can't, of course, go to the government.
We can't, by statute, go to the government at all, because this is a privately funded operation.
Yes.
But we will be suing the government.
For what?
Well, everything, really. Not giving us the right sort of track or the trains, and basically not giving us enough passengers. Because, you see, a tunnel is just a hole in the ground.
Yes.
And what we expect is millions of passengers to arrive at one end, and then we process them through to the other.
But you can't do that unless the government's bring the passengers to one end.
That's right.
Yes.
And indeed, we may think of suing the passengers. But the other great strategy, of course, is to try and reduce this £2 million a day of
interest payments. I mean, if you owe you do owe £2 million interest a day.
Every single day, Sundays included.
That's a crippling burden.
It is a crippling burden.
But have you any
our management team have found a very, very sophisticated way of getting around this problem.
Which is...
It's very, very highly technical, I'm afraid.
Well, could you explain it in layman's
Well, in layman's terms, we've reduced the income payments by the interest payments by not paying them.
That's a very extraordinarily ingenious way of doing it. Very innovative, yes.
Yes, it is.
And
it is.
For those of us with overdrafts, that's quite an interesting thought. What do the banks say to this?
I don't know. I haven't opened the envelopes.
So you actually owe them £2 million every single day, but you don't pay them anymore.
Well, no, we're a responsible company. We still owe the money.
Yes.
And all we've done is we've declared an 18-month moratorium on giving them back any money.
But you still owe the money.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
But we have recognised a very crucial difference here between owing people money and paying them.
Yes, very crucial. And how much are you saving on this?
Well, it's difficult to say without the figures in front of me, but it's somewhere the difference between £2 million a day and nothing.
Yes. So that must make a tremendous difference.
It makes a tremendous difference to our whole financial situation.
But so you've declared this moratorium for 18 months, but surely at the end of the 18 months, the situation will be merely that you owe the banks a colossal amount more money than you
Let me stop you there. I really like that word colossal.
Oh, yes, do.
It sort of indicates an amount of money that's so huge that the human imagination finds it difficult to grasp.
And you think that's what happened to the banks?
Yes, I think at the end of 18 months that the banks faced with this colossal amount of money are going to have to rethink their side of the equation.
Or, in other words, they're going to realise they don't have a cat in hell's chance of getting the money back.
Exactly.
And you think they might well just forget about it, forget about the £8 billion that you owe them?
Yes, I do, and then we can start with a clean slate.
Yes.
And make a lot of money.
Yes. And, of course, it has to be remembered that not all these banks that you owe this money to are British, are they?
Oh, no, a lot of them are Japanese.
Oh, yes, yes. So
stuff them.
Stuff them. Thank you. Alison Morton. George Parr, you are bidding for one of the 25 train operating franchises.
Southwest Trains.
You're bidding for Southwest Trains, yes. What qualifications do you particularly have for running the railway?
I'm ideally qualified to be given this franchise, owing to the fact that I've had absolutely no experience of the railway business whatsoever.
Yes. On the face of it, this might seem to be a disadvantage rather than an advantage.
Well, it would be a disadvantage if the government intended to grant the franchise to people who knew something about running railways and who might, in the future, run it more efficiently and rather more cheaply, but that would be flying in the face of government policy.
Yes. Could you tell us how much you're bidding for this franchise?
You really don't know much about this business, do you? The point is that we don't bid money here. It's not the most money bid. What we're bidding for is the lowest amount of subsidy that we're prepared to put up with from the government.
You would be able, presumably, to offer better services.
What do you mean?
You're not familiar with the concept. Better services to the passengers.
More trains, more regularly.
Yes.
No.
Because you will have competitors, at least for part of your...
Yes, the whole strategy is to attract customers from them and to deter customers from going to our competitors.
Yes, and what's your main...
Well, the main strategy would be using the stations, controlling the stations.
Yes, because you'll be given a certain number of stations.
Yes, we'll lease certain stations and therefore the ticket offices.
Yes.
Where we will sell our own tickets.
Yes.
And advertise our own services.
And give information to passengers.
And give information about when the trains are going to arrive, hopefully. And we'll refuse to give any information about the trains arriving on competitive services. And we can go beyond that. We can give them the wrong information.
Yes, you will need, of course, to expand your revenue, won't you? Because the regulator is going to cap some of the fares.
Yes, this is a very sneaky thing that he's going to do. Yes, but fortunately these are only peak fares, the off-peak fares won't be capped.
Well, the cheap day returns. and
Yes,
things like that,
yes. So we'll be able to put up the off-peak fares to the same level as the peak fares.
Yes.
And then, you see, people won't have that awful wait around in stations in the morning waiting
Yes.
for it to be 9:30 or 10 or whatever.
Yeah, I see.
And, of course, if they don't use the off-peak services, we don't have to provide them.
Isn't there a danger, or indeed a likelihood, that you'll be forcing them off the railways onto the buses, for example?
Well, I hope so. We're mainly a bus company.
George Parr, thank you very much.
Thank you. George Parr, you're the governor of the maximum security prison,
Yes.
and it's been a difficult week for the prison service.
We've had our ups and downs, yes.
Yes. You mean the prisoners going up over the wall and down the other
No,
side?
no, I was thinking in terms of the general morale in the service. Last week,
Yes.
the Tory party conference, the Home Secretary said prison works.
Yes.
And then this week he said that prisons were in such a shambles he was going to have to fire the Director General. So,
Yes, so you were rather depressed.
Yes.
Because the Learmont report, which was published this week, it does
Yes.
identify several managerial problems in the prison service. The fact that governors like you are surrounded by this huge mountain of paper every
Yes.
week. I believe one jail said that they received 230 letters, 45 faxes, and 6 email messages in one day.
in
alone.
one day, yes. That was a good jail. I wish I worked there.
Yes, but
Yes.
this is a great problem.
Well, it
isn't
is a problem, and not only that, but General Learmont also pointed out and criticised the fact that we have currently, from prison headquarters, 38 separate new initiatives, policy initiatives, that we have to be carrying out at the present time.
Yes. He did also identify certain security problems at Parkhurst, where the 3 men escaped, didn't he?
Yes, well, of course, I'm not governor of Parkhurst, and so I can't really comment. I don't know what goes on in Parkhurst prison. I hardly know what goes on in my prison, because I've got so much paperwork. But, yes, that
Yes,
worked.
but for example, he did say that there was D-Wing, which was a no-go area for the warders.
That's right, yes.
And that the staff in the emergency control room
Yes.
failed to notice on the television monitors the 3 prisoners climbing over the...
Over the wall, yes, but this is partly, you see, a matter of resources. Because he did also point out in the report that the people on duty, the officers on duty in the control room, were not fully trained.
What would that training amount to?
We train people over a long period and we bring them into the control room. They say, those are television screens. You probably aren't familiar with them, but they are television screens. And what you do is sit and point yourself at them so that you can see them. They'll be showing pictures of the prison fence. And if you happen to see little figures crawling up the wall, then, you know...
Alarm bells should start ringing in your head.
Yes, or preferably in the prison.
And of course, Mr. Marriott, the governor of Parkhurst Jail, his whole regime was somewhat criticised, wasn't it?
Well, it's very easy to criticise Mr. Marriott and governors like him for things like having ice cream vans in the prison and having barbecues for the prisoners. I mean, it sounds like woolly-minded liberal regime, but I mean, there are security benefits to these things.
In what
well,
way?
I mean, the barbecues, for example, are a very good way for prison officers to meet the prisoners. To actually get to know them, you see, because, I mean, they don't know the ones in D-Wing because they never get into
No,
D-Wing.
they can't do that.
The prisoners won't allow them. So
They could
you can point out, you see that the man over there eating the flaming sausage, that is Strangler Jarvis, or whoever it might happen to be. He's a very... he's a very desperate and dangerous prisoner.
Yes, he would be. Yes.
So
it is a lesson in prisoner recognition,
yes,
being able to recognise a prisoner when you
It
actually
is very valuable
see him.
for prison officers to recognise prisoners.
Well, I can see that would be an enormous advantage.
Well,
soon. What do you think?
I'm sorry. Because, they might recognise him in the street. Because it was pointed out by General Learmont, of course, that after the Parkhurst escape, one of the escapees was passed by a prison officer who didn't recognise it. And so it is very useful if you're out in the street and you're a prison officer and you see a prisoner coming out of the newsagents and you think, well, hang on.
I've seen him somewhere before. It must have been at the
barbecue.
Yeah.
This is appalling. No,
that is very, very useful. One could see that, especially if the man coming out of the newsagents was carrying the till. But if one could get back for a moment to the Home Secretary, Michael Howard, I mean, would you say that as some have, that there has been too much interference by the Home Secretary in the administration of prisons?
Yes, I mean, that has been said, but I mean, it's very good to have a hands-on Home Secretary, somebody who takes an interest, and we always look forward to his visits to the prison. They weren't very frequent, but he always had something to say to everybody. He would say, you know, what are you in for? And I'd say, I'm the governor. And then he'd say, thank you very much, and goodbye. Or occasionally, thank you very much, and you're fired.
Yes, no, I was thinking more of the gap which has been identified this week, particularly between what's called policy and what's called operational matters.
It's difficult to make the division there. I mean, previously we've always thought that policy was pretending to the voters you knew how to deal with crime, and operational was pretending to your staff that you knew how to deal with criminals. But now, a rather more simplified definition is that policy is when things are going all right, and operational is when they aren't.
But let's just say, for the moment, that Michael Howard really meant what he said. That he was, in other words, he was telling the truth. He wasn't lying.
Well, we have to assume that, do we?
Yeah.
Or for the purposes of this argument.
Yes.
Yes. Wait a minute. Give me a minute. It's rather like watching the X-Files, isn't it?
Take as
yes,
long
all
as
right. No.
Yes,
I've got it. Yes,
so if he actually means all these things about sentences and sending people for life after 2 strikes and you're out and that sort of thing, then the prison population is just going to rise just
tremendously, yes. I mean, we already have one of the highest prison populations in the world. We have 51,000 people in prison, and of course it will go up to twice that, 3 times, 4 times.
And it's going to be ruinously expensive.
It is.
We can't afford it.
We can't. Well,
because we have to build new prisons.
Yes. But even if you don't count building new prisons and so forth, it still costs. For example, in my prison, on average, it costs £816 a week to keep a prisoner in my prison.
So that's
£43,000 a year. Now, this I've come up with an idea which I've put forward to the Home Office. Is what you do is, if you say, all right, it's 43,000, half of that is, say, let's say 22,000, and you go to a prisoner and you say, look here, would you like to make £22,000? We'll pay you £11,000 down now. You go out, you don't commit any crimes or anything for a year, and then you get another 11,000 on top of that. And now, this at a stroke, you see, will halve your prison budget.
Yes, it would. And you wouldn't need the other half because you wouldn't have anyone in the prison.
There wouldn't be any crime.
And there wouldn't be any crime.
No. Good idea.
That's rather the only flaw in that otherwise terribly ingenious piece of social engineering is that there isn't a punishment element.
There isn't a punishment element, and of course a lot of people want that. A lot of people want that more than anything else. They want
more than not wanting any crime.
And more than not wanting any crime, more than not wanting justice, for example. They want punishment. So in that case, we will have to do what has been suggested anyway by Learmont and others, which is to introduce American systems.
Oh, yes. This is the Supermax prison.
The Supermax prison for the most violent prison, all in one place.
Yes, yes.
So, well, with any luck, some of them will kill each other. So that
would be a help.
It'd be a help. That,
and of course, the boot camps.
Boot camps where
yes.
you put indisciplined
yob
teenagers and turn them out as highly disciplined, fit, aggressive criminals.
Yes.
And chain gangs and tagging and the rest of it.
Do you think that these American ideas would work in this country?
Well, as we all know, there's very little crime in America. So I imagine they'll be as successful here as they are there.
Yes. Yes, because this is the first priority of any prison service, isn't it, is to prevent crime, too.
No, the first priority of the prison service is that whatever happens, Michael Howard isn't to blame for it.
George Parr, thank you very much indeed.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
George Parr, you're very closely involved in the preparation of the budget.
Yes, I've been working with the Chancellor and the Treasury team on the final stages of the budget.
Now, I do realise that nothing at all could induce you to reveal secrets.
No. Well, very large sums of money, but otherwise, no. Because actually, the final calculations haven't been made yet.
I see. Of course, you're an economist.
No. I work for Euro Disney. I've been seconded to the Treasury for this period.
I can't quite see the connection between a fantasy theme park and the budget.
Can't you? I thought he was staring you in the face. Well, no. The connection is, well, you see, people go to Euro Disney and they see the Enchanted Palace and the Crocodile Pool and the Wild West Saloon, but they don't think they've really been there until they see the 12-foot-high figure with the long white whiskers and the big black ears.
I see, yes.
You see, yes. And in the same way that this budget is just before a general election. Now, during the general election, you will hear a lot of discussion about education and health and unemployment. But people won't feel they really know how to vote until they know what sort of a tax cut they're going to have.
So the tax cut is, so to speak, the mouse in your analogy.
It's a mouse, it's a cheese, it's a trap. It is the thing, you see, which is going to decide whether people vote for the Conservative Party or not.
I see. And you think that you're qualified to know what is going to make them vote in that way?
Well, I've spent the last few years getting people to travel hundreds of miles to a swamp outside Paris to see a pointless farrago of overpriced trivia. And so I think I do know what the public are inclined to fall for.
And in this case, of course, it's the tax cut.
Yes.
But I mean, people are saying already, aren't they, that if the Chancellor cuts taxes, it's a simple bribe.
Well, as we all know, the general public are inclined to jump to wild conclusions in a hurry, but in this case, they're right.
So it is just bribery?
It is just bribery, yes.
But surely there must be, I mean, a sort of fig leaf of economic argument which says that cutting taxes would actually improve the economy.
Yes, there may be, I suppose. I don't know. We haven't discussed that in the Treasury. We just discussed the bribing side of things.
But aren't the electorate going to despise the government, which just offers them bribes?
Well, this is the calculation that we have to make at the moment. You see, this is a fine calculation. Do they despise us more than we despise them? I mean, they know it's a bribe. And we know that they know it's a bribe, and they know that we know that they know it's a bribe. But it is a matter of pitching the bribe at just the right level. I mean, just let me illustrate with figures. I mean, if it's 1 pence in the pound off income tax, people will say, well, this is just a bribe, and I'm not going to vote for anything as shameless as that. But if it's 3 pence off the income tax, they say, well, this is just a bribe, but it's a bloody good one. And so they vote, you see. You see what
Yes,
I'm
I
getting
do.
at?
I'm seeing the logic.
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Good.
But, I mean, in this case, you might as well offer them anything. Shouldn't you offer them the moon?
Oh, well, no. In that case, the calculation goes, instead of, do we despise them for being greedy? It's do we despise them for being stupid? Because they know that if we cut the top rate of income tax from 40% to 5%, say, which is what the very high earners pay anyway, then they'll know it's not going to work, you see. I mean, they know that we think they're stupid, but it's important that they don't think we think they're as stupid as all that.
And in any case, presumably, if the tax cuts don't help the economy, you're going to have to put up taxes again in a couple of years, which is what happened last time.
Yes, well, of course, that's the risk you take. It's like the lottery, really. It is a lottery, in fact, that people know they're not going to have much chance of winning the lottery, but they know that unless they buy the car, they're not going to have any chance at all, in the same way as they know that tax cuts probably won't work, but they're not going to get them unless they're very conservative. You follow me? You are following me.
Yes. I seem to have stumbled into a world of complete cynicism here.
Well, unfortunately, we all know that it is a very cynical world, and rightly or wrongly, the people, everybody despises politicians. But that's a tremendous advantage to us. Because you're not keeping up here, because the Chancellor knows that people already despise him because he's a politician. So they aren't going to start despising him because he gives money away in bribes, are they? I mean, it is as though... let me draw you an analogy. The Chancellor, in this case, is a drug dealer. And the voter is an addict, you see. Now, the addict may despise the drug dealer.
Lowest form of human life.
Yes. But he's still quite glad to see him coming round the corner with his little bag of white powder, isn't he? You see, he's still quite pleased. I'm not saying, of course, that the Chancellor is a drug dealer. I have no way of knowing whether he is or not.
No. But am I being just, I'm sorry, sort of hopelessly idealistic? To think that the electorate would actually prefer politicians who had some principles and who stuck to the promises that they made?
Well, that would be disastrous. Well, yes, because what it takes. But Britain at the moment is in a relatively good economic position. We've got growth at 2% and a relatively low rate of inflation. Now, the reason that we are in that good position is because in 1992 we left the European exchange mechanism and devalued the pound, both of which things John Major, the Prime Minister, said he would never do. He promised he would never do it, and if he did do it, it would be a complete betrayal of the country.
So it's only because John Major did betray the country that we're as well off as we are now.
Yes, you're getting there. Yes, yes.
So this means, I'm gradually learning this argument, this means that we should vote for the party which is most likely to break its promises on principle.
Well, if only it were as simple as that. The world would be a much better place. No, you can't do that because you never know in advance which principles you have to break. You see, that's the thing.
It's not till you abandon the principle that you know whether it's going to...
Whether it's going to work or not. Yes, exactly right.
And of course, I suppose, in some senses, the electorate, too, can't be relied on to...
Well, no, I mean, we say that the voters despise the government for not keeping the promises, but then the voters don't keep their promises either, do they?
No. Because in the last election, people said they'd be prepared to pay more tax for better public services, and then when it came to it, they actually voted for lower taxes.
Yes. You see, they said they would vote Labour. They told the opinion polls that they'd vote Labour, and then, of course, they went and voted Conservative. And, this makes it very difficult.
Very difficult to predict anything.
Somebody like me, yes.
Yes.
Because if you can't rely on these people in this way. I mean, and the thing, what worries us is that Mr. Blair, you see, is bringing the Labour Party to the point where I think it might well be possible, he may have achieved this, that people will be ashamed to say they're going to vote for the Labour Party as well. So...
But that's democracy, isn't it?
Well, that is democracy, yes. I mean, it's a secret ballot.
Yes, and people have the right to vote for something they're deeply ashamed of.
That's right, yes. But it does make it difficult.
Yes, and of course, I mean, you could have a situation where people took the bribe, took the tax cuts, and still voted Labour, couldn't you?
Well,
How would you feel about that?
Well, I don't know. I'd give up then, really. I mean, it'd make me lose all my faith in human nature if that happened. I mean, I'd be inclined to go and live abroad if that was the case. Actually, I do live abroad. And you never get this problem in the Cayman Islands because you don't pay tax anyway. There. See?
George Parr, thank you very much indeed.
That's all right. It's a pleasure. George Parr, you are a personal political advisor to Tony Blair. And as you are probably aware, there's been controversy recently about his decision to send his son Ewan to the London Oratory School, which is a grant-maintained, opted-out school. Were you involved in this decision at all?
Yes, I was very heavily involved in this decision. I'm very close to Tony.
Yes.
And it obviously was a very sensitive decision, and we didn't take it lightly. We took it because Cherry Blair told us to.
But this school, the London Oratory School, I mean, it isn't an ordinary school by any means, is it? It was one of the first, if not the first, in London to opt out of local education control, local authority control. It's grant maintained,
yes.
and this is all against Labour Party policy, really. And not only that, but its headmaster. Its headmaster was an advisor to John Patton, and it was a flagship, in fact, of the government's policy. And as a result, he's been rewarded very heavily by the government. He's been given a great deal of money, £2.5 million alone, for an art centre, which was opened by John Major. And all this is against Labour Party policy, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. But,
yes.
There is a but.
Is there?
It's a very, very good school. And you surely can't blame a parent for wanting to send his child to a very good school.
No. Well, how did they know it was a good school?
Well, they read about it in the league tables.
Yes. But the league tables are against Labour Party policy too, aren't they?
Yes.
And there were 50 other state schools nearer to Blair's home which you could have gone to?
Yes, we did consider them very, very carefully. And, of course, there were crucial considerations that any family living in Islington have to take on board.
Well, such as what?
Well, uniforms, for example.
Yes.
Whether the uniforms match the decor in the Blair kitchen.
Yes.
And of course, it had to be a Roman Catholic.
Yes, because Mrs. Blair is a Roman Catholic. But then there were 5 Roman Catholic schools, weren't they? He could have state schools. Yes.
Yes, that's true. But none of them were like the London Oratory School, you see, because Tony Blair was educated at a public school in Scotland, and he wanted to find the nearest thing for Ewan that he didn't have to pay for. I mean, not that he was mean in any way, but because of his principles.
His socialist principles.
I don't think we need to descend to personal insults.
No, I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry. No, that was a joke anyway.
And I must say this. There was in this decision a really political agenda.
Oh, really?
And an element of personal sacrifice, which I don't think has been acknowledged.
Personal sacrifice by the Blairs?
Absolutely. You see, if you want to change an iniquitous institution,
yes,
like the British education system,
which is
divisive and elitist and unfair.
Yes. What do you do?
Well, the best way to start is by leaving it exactly as it is.
Yes.
And then gradually, surreptitiously, almost secretively, change it from the inside.
So that is what Ewan is going to do, is he, the son? He's going to be a sort of mole, is he, on the inside?
Well, I don't think he knows he's a mole at the moment, because he's only 10 years old. But after a few years of experience of this privileged, elitist, education, with its cachet and its sense of
Snobbery.
social snobbery,
Yeah.
he's going to become angrier and angrier and angrier until in the end he'll just explode and tear down the whole shoddy fabric of this...
I see. So this is not what it appears. It's not a selfish thing by the Blairs at all. It's a rather revolutionary project, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Tony Blair is sacrificing his son by giving him an education which is better than 95% of the population enjoys, in order to destroy the system completely.
That's an amazing argument.
It is an amazing argument.
Yes.
I'm stunned by it, and I've only just thought of it.
To most people, this will smack a little too much of Machiavelli. They'll think that really the idea is that Tony Blair is just sacrificing political principle for personal advantage.
No, they couldn't be more wrong in that.
Surely.
And there is also a very deep political strategy at work here. Because, you see, Tony's problem is that he has got to persuade millions of disgruntled Tories that they can trust him.
Yes.
See, because at the moment they're afraid that as soon as he gets into power, the mask will come off and he'll be revealed as a socialist with left-wing Labour policies. And by sending Ewan to the London Oratory, he's sending a signal to these people.
That he's conservative.
No. That and a great deal more. The signal is saying he's not just pretending to be a conservative, and then later on he's going to revert to being a socialist.
I see.
Because by sending Ewan to the London Oratory, this is a guarantee that he's genuinely conservative.
So the policy the current Labour Party policy, at least the one that was announced yesterday, there might have been a new one today, but was Mr. Blunkett sent round a circular saying that it was Labour Party policy in the future that he would stop all opting out and make all grant-maintained schools go back under local authority control.
Well, I think that makes my point.
Does it?
Well, I mean, what better start could Ewan have than going to a school which, when he's finished with it, nobody else will be allowed to go to? I mean, that's you know.
Yes.
And besides which, Tony Blair simply isn't going to let Labour Party policies stand in the way of his son's future.
No, that's... Well, after all, he hasn't let them stand in the way of his own future, has it? So, thank you, George Parr.
Thank you very much. George Parr, you're a senior advisor to the Labour Party.
Yes, I am.
I wonder if I could ask you about the guiding principles behind the strategy of the Labour Party at the moment.
Well, I think at the moment the watchword is caution. Really, I think it's not a time for making silly mistakes.
I wonder if I could ask you a personal question.
Yes, of course, by all means.
What I'd really like to know is what particular area of party policy are you personally responsible for?
Well, I'm a party image maker.
There must be a reason why you're wearing this feminine outfit.
Yes, I suppose there must be. I think it's a signal.
Is it?
See, I think it's a signal to people that that New Labour is about style. People are very disenchanted with politics and politicians at the moment. They think they're being sold something which is not which is not the real thing, as it were. And I think this is a signal that we are on the side of those people who aren't particularly interested in politics, who are really, a lot of people out there just want to have a good time. They want to know what the latest club to go to, what the latest hairstyle should be, what the latest fashion should be, what they should be drinking, and that sort of thing. People who are after some fun.
And what are you offering them that is new?
Well, anything. Really? New hairstyle, new body fragrance, new government, new Britain.
But doesn't...
Anything as long as it's new.
And, new and fun.
New and fun, yes.
Does this imply any sort of political programme at all?
It could do, easily, yes. Yes, I mean, why not? Why not? If we're in that sort of mood that night, yes, why not? Let's do it.
George Parr, thank you very much indeed.
It's a pleasure. George Parr, you are a senior political advisor at 10 Downing Street. And I'd like to talk about the government's policy on asylum and immigration.
Now, just let me stop you there. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, is there a problem here?
No, it's just that when you say the words immigration and asylum, and everyone jumps to the conclusion that the government just wants to make it more and more difficult for black people to enter this country.
Well, yes, I realise that it's not quite as simple as that.
Yes, it is. But we don't really want to give that impression.
No, I see. Well, because Mr. Lilly has announced measures to restrict benefit to asylum seekers, and Mr. Howard has announced a whole new asylum and immigration bill, which will come up in the Queen's speech.
Yes, and part of that bill will be to announce a list of countries from which applications for political asylum will not be entertained.
The so-called white list.
That's right.
Of countries, yes.
Yes. This will be a list of countries that we regard as being so safe and so nice to live in.
Yes.
That people would be out of their minds to want to leave it.
Well, something like New Zealand or somewhere like that, you mean?
Yes.
The curious thing is that the rumours have been that actually 3 of the countries on the list would be Nigeria. Sri Lanka, and possibly Algeria.
Algeria, yes.
Yes, and not New Zealand. I mean, why isn't New Zealand on the list?
Well, it would be pointless, wouldn't it? Because, as far as I know, there's never been an application for political asylum from
New Zealand.
New
No,
Zealand.
but on the other hand, last year there were 7,685 applications from the 3 countries I mentioned.
Yes.
And the Home Office is in effect saying that these 3 countries are as safe as New Zealand.
Yes, it's very odd.
It's curious, yes.
But then again, at the policy unit at number 10, we do have a saying.
You have a saying. What is it?
It takes all sorts to make a world.
Right. Well, that's given me something to think about. But isn't there a chance that this may appear to be discriminatory against people from these 3 countries, Nigeria and Sri Lanka and Algeria?
Absolutely not.
Oh, sorry.
No. It shouldn't be thought in any way that this is a blacklist.
No.
I mean, that's why we called it a whitelist.
Yes.
I mean, if we called it a blacklist, there might be certain
racial overtones
of
yes,
race.
yes,
but in any
absolutely.
case, I mean, Algerians aren't black, are they?
They're not black. No.
But then one could hardly call it the swarthy with a big bushy moustache list.
No. So Peter Lilly is not going to take away all the benefits, is he, from asylum seekers?
No, asylum seekers will get some benefit from the moment when they arrive to the moment when their application is refused by the Department of Immigration.
Yeah.
And then, of course, after that...
They can appeal.
They can appeal.
Against that.
Yes. And usually the appeal takes sort of 18 months, that sort of time.
Yes.
In which time, of course, they don't get any benefit.
They don't get any benefit, and they're not allowed to work.
They're not allowed to work.
It makes it rather difficult then for them to pursue their appeal. I mean, they've got no money to spend on legal fees or kebabs or whatever it is. that they eat.
Well, they should have thought of that before, shouldn't
Yes,
they? They should have provided themselves with kebabs. Or whatever.
Yes, on their way over, because they can, and in fact you are encouraging them to pursue their appeals from the country which they left.
Absolutely. They don't have to appeal from within this country.
No, no. So, I mean, somebody who's come out of a prison in Nigeria and has got over here and has applied for political asylum has been turned down. And
they're perfectly free to go back.
They
to
can
Nigeria.
go back and say yes to the hellhole which they've left, and say,
Yes.
and where they'll be welcomed with open arms. Of
Yes,
course,
and they can proceed with their appeals from within, in this case, Nigeria.
Yes, yes, yes.
And of course, this is the acid test, because if we don't hear from them again, this automatically means that they've changed their minds about political asylum.
And they think Nigeria is a really
Is
good
land
place to
flowing
live.
with milk
Yes.
and bananas.
Or, of course, they could be dead.
Yes, but either way, it's a saving to the taxpayer, isn't it?
Yes, that's perfectly true. But they're still allowed to, a man in a Lagos prison cell can still write to the Home Secretary.
Oh, yes.
You're saying dear Home Secretary, please excuse the wobbling writing, but the cigarette ends attached to the genitals are making my normal copper plate rather difficult to sustain. So, something like that. But if I could just go on, Michael Howard himself at the Tory party conference said, and I think I'm quoting from him here, he said, "Nothing we do to control immigration will be racist."
That's right. That's right.
But isn't there a danger that this might appear?
No, because in
racist?
the same speech he said that Britain should be proud of their record on race relations, and good race relations should go hand in hand with a firm immigration policy.
So, in other words, he means that the fewer people who are let in who are I'm looking for a euphemism for dark-skinned here. Well, let's call it a euphemism.
A euphemism, yes.
Who are euphemisms. The fewer,
the fewer
euphemisms who are let in, the fewer, by definition, the fewer potential victims of racial violence there will be.
Prevention is better than cure, isn't it?
So this, in fact, is an anti-racist policy.
It's an anti-racist policy by a government which is by no means racist. I mean, no one could accuse the Prime Minister of being a racist.
No.
Or Michael Howard.
No, certainly not. No, after all, no, his grandparents were Lithuanian immigrants.
But they weren't black, were they? Not that makes any difference at all.
At all? No.
So what you're probably wondering is that if the basis of this policy isn't racism,
yes, and you're not going to save all that amount of money.
No.
I mean, what is the basis?
Well, the basis of it is that the Prime Minister believes that there are enough racist bigots in the country to swing the next general election. I mean, yes. After all, that's democracy, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And Mr. Andrew Lansley, who was until I think this month the Director of Research at Conservative Central Office, wrote an article in September in which he did say that immigration was used successfully by the Conservatives in the 1992 general election, and, to use his own phrase, played well in the tabloids.
Yes, what we think, you see, is that there are enough Sun readers who have been used to voting for the Conservatives, who have bought their own council houses and are having a really, really tough time at the moment.
Yes.
And they don't want things to get worse by having lots of black people come into this country and take the poorly paid part-time jobs that their wives are entitled to.
Exactly. So I mean, you think this is the right policy there? I mean, this is the right idea?
Oh, yes, it is, absolutely. It's our idea. Well, it isn't our idea, in fact.
Oh, really? Whose idea?
No, it isn't, in fact. No, it's a European idea.
Oh, is it?
Yes, there was a meeting on the 23rd of September last when the Council of Justice Ministers met, and Mr. Howard was very highly pressured to adopt these immigration measures, especially the idea of a list of
safe countries.
Yes,
So this is actually pressure from Europe. Now,
Yes.
I mean, I don't understand why the government haven't stressed that point. After all, it would take away some of the opprobrium, which might mistakenly...
Yes, but I mean, the Home Secretary simply couldn't stand up in front of the Tory conference and say, this is our immigration policy, but it's all the idea of Brussels.
Because the conference would hate that.
They would absolutely hate it.
But they don't mind saying, keep the ning-dongs out of the country. Sorry, euphemism, sorry.
Keep the euphemism out of the country, because then that becomes a British policy, and we can be proud of it.
Yes. Yes. Racism should be British racism.
Absolutely. Yes. You don't put the boot in for Brussels.
No. Where does the Prime Minister himself personally stand?
Well, of course, this isn't a personal responsibility of the Prime Minister. It's a departmental matter. But he has a duty, of course, as Prime Minister, to delegate racism and xenophobia
to his ministers.
Yes, because his first duty is to appear to be a very nice man and stay on as Prime Minister for as long as possible.
George Parr, thank you very much for coming to talk.
George Parr, you're the director of a well-known independent think tank, and you've been struggling with the problems involved in an ageing population. Now, in the budget this week, of course, the most controversial aspect of it was the imposition of VAT on fuel oil, which is going to hit the pensioners very, very hard.
Very hard.
Yet, the Chancellor has offset that increase, hasn't he, by putting up old age pensions by, 70p a week. So, what do you think of that?
Well, it's pathetic, isn't it? I mean, it's absolutely pathetic and outrageous, frankly. The government keeps throwing money at this problem without any thought, really, of, the cost. What these old people should cost. I mean, why should we automatically go on heating up these old people? Does it make them more efficient? Do they contribute more to society when they're hotter?
So what you're suggesting is some kind of cost-benefit analysis of elderly people?
Yes, I think we need that. We need to know, like any other resource, how much it costs and what use are they? Are they any use, old people?
Well, the traditional view surely has been that old people represent a reservoir of wisdom in society, somewhere where young people can go and benefit from their vast experience.
Yes. But that would be all right in old societies where nothing changed very much over the years, over the generations. But in a contemporary world, the old people's knowledge of society changes so fast now, and the young people need to know things which will help them to prosper and flourish in a contemporary society. What do old people know about pulp and blur and glue sniffing and stacking shelves at Safeway and things like that? They know nothing about that, you see. They're completely useless.
Hufty.
Hufty, yes.
Yes, they know nothing.
They know nothing about Hufty. No. I don't know very much about Hufty.
I can't say that I do. So what you're saying, in effect, is that these elderly people have nothing to contribute, is that?
Well, I happen to know that because I am a director of a chain of old people's homes in the north of England, and so I have experience of these things. And old people just talk nostalgically about the Blitz and sharing each other's ration cards and not locking their doors at night and how wonderful it was in the old days and all that sort of
Mucking
thing.
in.
Mucking in. Yes, the young people don't need to know that. The young people know how to compete with their neighbours, don't they? Not how to go around lending them cups of sugar and things of that kind.
Doing the dirty on them.
Yeah. So, as far as I can see, all old people do is sit around old people's homes dribbling and constituting a fire hazard.
Although, in some senses, the fire hazard would be helped by the dribbles. It would be a sort of primitive form of a sprinkler system.
Well, yes. In our old people's homes, it would be the only form, primitive or otherwise.
And I suppose incontinence would come into play here.
In extreme emergencies, yes. Yes. Well, in fact, I've often heard Mrs. Hopkins, come down, there's a conflagration in the basement, and we'd be very grateful for your input. And even more for your output.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, we rather lost track here.
Yes, yes. What I was going to ask you really is that what is your proposal going to involve here? I mean, are we talking about taking measures of some kind?
I think we have to take measures. I mean, we need to have young people who are adaptable. I'm sorry, to changing circumstances. I mean, the New Testament shows us that. You see, Christ, for example. Jesus Christ, I'm talking about.
In what sense?
He was very adaptable. You know, he was trained as a carpenter, and when the bottom fell out of the carpentry trade, he diversified into the service industry. He started with a few loaves and fishes and built himself up into a medium-sized catering company.
And of course, he didn't actually go on to be old.
No, he didn't. You see, he died at 33.
And of course, being God, he could decide when he was going to die.
Yes, he could.
Presumably.
He could.
So you think that there is a sort of message in that, that old age is not necessarily a good thing?
Well, Christ is a role model, I think, in many, many respects. Yes. I mean, I've always admired his work. And I've always wished he looked a little more like Peter Lilly and a little less like Jerry Adams. But let me put this another way. Let me put this another way.
Yes.
How many drooling old crones have you seen in the VIP lounge at Heathrow Airport? Not very many is the answer to that.
No, I didn't. Sorry, I can't quite see what this is.
Well, you see, the people you see in the VIP lounge at Heathrow Airport are the people who are valuable to society. They're the wealth creators, the top businessmen, you see. And the irony of it is they have a lower life expectancy because of the pressures on them, you see.
I see, they're making all these corporate decisions all the time.
The average businessman, by the time he gets to Heathrow Airport, has already had a harrowing time worrying about whether his chauffeur's going to get there in time, or whether he's going to have to kick his heels in the bar for 2.5 hours waiting for the next plane, and when he gets on the plane, is there going to be enough legroom in his first-class seat? Is the stewardess going to be attractive enough? Is the champagne going to be cold enough? When he gets to the other side, is his hotel swimming pool going to be of an adequate size? Is his suite going to have a decent view? Is the executive trouser press going to be functional? You see, all these myriad decisions which weigh upon the top businessman.
Whereas what you're saying is that the elderly don't have these intense pressures.
No, exactly. You see, the working class elderly are fed and watered by the welfare state. Nothing wears out. They don't have any sense of stress, and so in a way, you see, the wrong genes survive.
Sorry, isn't that rather getting a bit close to eugenics?
No, I don't think that's an abhorrent idea, I think, eugenics. But on the other hand, the state shouldn't intervene in that way, but the state shouldn't intervene in the opposite way either, prolonging these rather pointless lives by heaping these handouts on them.
70p a week.
70p a week.
Yes, I can see that. So is there something that can be done, in your view?
Well, it's not an easy problem. I don't pretend to have the answer. I mean, I do think there is an answer somewhere floating around, but I've never been able to quite put my finger on it. It's a very difficult problem.
Well, I'm almost relieved that there isn't a solution, because it almost sounded as if you were talking about culling the elderly.
That's it. That's the idea. That's the idea I think I have been looking for all this time. Yes.
Surely one can't imagine sort of bands of DHSS death squads rolling around shooting.
No, they couldn't. I mean, they'd bungle it. They're civil servants. No, this should be left to market forces along with everything else. You see.
In what sense?
People should have a choice should be offered to people.
So,
not to the old people, of course, but I'm talking about their families. Their families should be given the choice.
I see. So let me summarise. What you're saying is that the state should no longer be responsible at all for elderly people.
Yes.
They should be the sole responsibility of their families.
Yes, the families have to balance their priorities. They must ask themselves fundamental questions. Do we want the new Mondeo, or do we want Granny hanging around leaving her colostomy bag on the hostess trolley?
Yes, well, That is a very, very personal view,
Yes.
Sir George. And I wonder...
I remember my own mother saying to me, George, I do not want to become a burden on the public sector borrowing requirement.
Very public-spirited of her. Might I ask you, since you're not yourself, Sir George, in the first flush of youth, what is actually going to happen to you in 10 or 15 years?
Well, I can promise you this. I myself am not going to be a burden on future generations.
I see. You're talking about euthanasia.
No, I'm talking about Greece. I have a property in Greece, and I shall go and spend my retirement there. Greece is a country which respects the old, which is, of course, why it's so pathetically backward economically.
Sir George Parr, thank you very much.
That's a pleasure.